Wealthy heir mocks a poor waitress. What she does next changes everything. The diner buzzed with activity, the hum of conversation mixing with the clinking of dishes and the occasional sizzle from the kitchen. Maria moved quickly between tables, balancing a tray of coffee cups in one hand and a notepad in the other. Her uniform, a simple blue dress with a white apron, was neat but slightly worn, a reflection of her long shifts and the countless hours she spent on her feet. She greeted each customer with a warm smile, her voice cheerful despite the exhaustion that weighed on her. "Another refill, Mrs. Harper?" she asked, pouring coffee into the elderly woman's cup without waiting for an answer. Mrs. Harper smiled and nodded, patting Maria's hand in thanks. "You're such a hard worker, Maria," she said, her voice soft. "You remind me of myself when I was your age." Maria chuckled, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "Thank you, Mrs. Harper. Just trying to keep up with the bills." As Maria turned to head back to the counter, the bell above the door jingled. She glanced over her shoulder to see a group of sharply dressed young men walk in, their polished shoes clicking against the tiled floor. They were laughing loudly, their voices cutting through the diner's usual hum. At the center of the group was Nathan, a man who exuded confidence and entitlement. His tailored suit and expensive watch gleamed under the diner's fluorescent lights, setting him apart from the modest surroundings. Nathan scanned the room with an amused smirk, clearly out of place in the retro diner. "This is where you wanted to eat, Elliot?" he asked one of his friends, his tone dripping with disbelief. "I could have taken us to that new French bistro downtown." Elliot shrugged, looking slightly uncomfortable. "It's not about the food, Nathan. Sometimes it's nice to try something different." Nathan raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. Instead, he strode to a booth near the window, his friends trailing behind him. Maria approached their table with her notepad in hand, her professional smile firmly in place. "Good afternoon," she said politely. "Can I get you started with something to drink?" Nathan barely glanced at her, his attention focused on his phone. "Water," he said dismissively. His friends followed suit, mumbling their drink orders without looking up. Maria nodded, jotting down the orders. "I'll be right back with those." As she walked away, Nathan leaned back in his seat, a sly grin spreading across his face. "Did you see her uniform?" he said to his friends, his voice loud enough for Maria to hear from the counter. "It looks like something out of a 1950s sitcom." One of his friends laughed nervously, while Elliot shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Maria's smile faltered for a brief moment, but she quickly regained her composure. She grabbed a tray and filled their glasses with water, willing herself to stay professional. When she returned to their table, Nathan's smirk widened. "So, Maria," he said, glancing at her name tag. "How long have you been working here? Looks like this place has been around forever." Maria placed the drinks on the table, her expression calm despite the heat rising in her cheeks. "Just a couple of years," she replied. "It's a good job, and the customers are nice." Nathan chuckled, his tone dripping with condescension. "Nice customers, huh? Must be a dream come true." Elliot cleared his throat, shooting Nathan a warning look. "Nathan, come on. Let's just order." But Nathan wasn't done. "What about you, Maria? Is this your dream job? Slinging coffee and wearing that adorable little apron?" Maria's grip on the tray tightened, but she forced herself to stay composed. She met Nathan's gaze, her voice steady. "No, it's not my dream job. But it's an honest one." Nathan's smirk faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Honest, huh? I guess that's one way to look at it." Elliot sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Nathan, that's enough. Let's just eat." Maria turned to leave, her heart pounding in her chest. She had dealt with rude customers before, but there was something about Nathan's mocking tone that cut deeper. Still, she refused to let him see that he had gotten to her. As the meal went on, Nathan continued to make snide comments, each one more cutting than the last. Maria avoided their table as much as possible, focusing on her other customers and reminding herself why she was there. She wasn't just working for herself, she was working for her younger brother, Miguel, who was in college on a partial scholarship. Every tip she earned went toward his tuition, books, and living expenses. She had promised their parents before they passed away that she would take care of him, and she wasn't about to let anyone's cruelty distract her from that promise. Eventually, Maria returned to Nathan's table to take their orders. She kept her voice steady, her smile polite. "Are you ready to order?" Nathan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "You know, Maria, I think I'll have the steak. Medium rare. Do you even know what that means? Or should I draw you a picture?" Maria felt her cheeks flush, but she didn't rise to the bait. "Medium rare," she repeated, writing it down. "Anything else?" Nathan grinned. "No, that'll do. Just make sure you don't overcook it, okay? I'd hate to see you ruin another thing today." Maria nodded, biting back the retort that danced on the tip of her tongue. She turned and walked away, her fists clenched at her sides. She could hear Nathan's friends laughing behind her, and it took every ounce of strength she had to keep her head held high. At the counter, Maria's coworker, Jenny, leaned in and whispered, "How are you not throwing that water in his face right now?" Maria exhaled slowly, trying to release the tension in her chest. "Because I need this job," she said quietly. "And because people like him aren't worth the energy." Jenny nodded, her expression sympathetic. "You're stronger than I am." Maria smiled faintly, grateful for Jenny's support. She glanced over at Nathan's table, where he was now scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the world around him. "He'll get what's coming to him," she said softly. "They always do." Maria pushed through her shift, focusing on the other customers who were kind enough to treat her with respect. She knew better than to let people like Nathan get under her skin, but his mockery lingered, a sharp echo in the back of her mind. Each time she passed his table, she felt his eyes on her, like he was daring her to break. Jenny leaned over as Maria wiped down the counter. "You know, if I were you, I'd accidentally drop his steak in the trash before serving it," she said with a mischievous grin. Maria gave a small laugh, appreciating Jenny's attempt to lighten the mood. "Tempting," she replied, "but I think he'd just find a way to make it worse." Jenny frowned, watching Nathan as he made another snide remark to his friends. "Guys like him think they're untouchable. It's disgusting." Maria nodded silently, her grip tightening on the rag in her hand. She wasn't one to hold grudges, but something about Nathan's arrogance made her stomach churn. He didn't just look down on her, he looked down on everyone, as if the world existed for his amusement. When the food was finally ready, Maria carried the plates to Nathan's table with steady hands. She carefully placed his steak in front of him, meeting his gaze briefly before stepping back. "Wow," Nathan said, inspecting the dish with mock enthusiasm. "I'm impressed. You didn't burn it. Maybe there's hope for you yet." Maria said nothing, offering only a tight smile before walking away. She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, but she refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing her upset. Instead, she busied herself with clearing tables and refilling coffee cups, focusing on the customers who actually appreciated her work. An hour later, Nathan and his friends finally stood to leave. Maria braced herself as they approached the counter, already anticipating another round of mocking comments. Nathan leaned against the counter, sliding his credit card across to pay the bill. "Thanks for the 5-star service, Maria," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "I'll be sure to leave a glowing review." Maria met his gaze, her expression calm but firm. "I'm glad you enjoyed your meal," she replied evenly. Nathan smirked, clearly amused by her composure. "You know," he said, lowering his voice, "if you ever get tired of this place, I'm sure I could find a job for you. I hear my family's estate needs someone to clean the stables." Maria stared at him for a moment, her heart pounding. She knew she should stay silent, to let him walk away and forget about her. But something inside her snapped. She set down the tray she was holding and folded her arms, her voice steady but resolute. "Let me tell you something, Nathan," she said, her tone quiet but commanding. "You can have all the money in the world, but it doesn't mean a thing if you don't have respect. You think you're better than everyone else because of your fancy suit and your trust fund, but one day, you're going to realize that life doesn't work that way. And when that day comes, I hope you remember this conversation." Nathan blinked, caught off guard by her words. For a moment, he looked as though he might respond, but instead he laughed, shaking his head. "Whatever helps you sleep at night, Maria," he said, his smirk returning. He turned and walked out of the diner, his friends trailing behind him. As the door swung shut, Maria let out a slow breath, her hands trembling. She felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with relief and frustration. Jenny walked over, her eyes wide. "That was incredible," Jenny said, her voice hushed. "I've never seen you stand up to someone like that." Maria shrugged, her expression thoughtful. "I just couldn't let him walk all over me anymore. People like him need to hear the truth, even if they don't want to listen." Weeks passed, and Maria threw herself into her work, determined to leave the encounter with Nathan behind her. Life wasn't easy. She worked double shifts at the diner and picked up extra hours cleaning offices at night to make ends meet. But she refused to let her circumstances define her. She had dreams, and she wasn't about to give up on them. One evening, as she was wiping down tables after the dinner rush, a familiar face walked into the diner. It was Mr. Benson, a regular customer who always ordered the same thing: black coffee and a slice of apple pie. But tonight, he wasn't alone. A woman in a tailored blazer accompanied him, her confident stride and warm smile immediately catching Maria's attention. "Maria, there you are," Mr. Benson said, his voice cheerful. "This is my colleague, Helen. She's been dying to meet you." Maria raised an eyebrow, glancing between the two of them. "Meet me? Why?" Mr. Benson chuckled, taking a seat at the counter. "I've been telling her about your work ethic. Helen runs a culinary training program, and she's always on the lookout for talented individuals. I thought of you right away." Maria's breath caught in her throat. "You want me to join a culinary program?" Helen nodded, her smile encouraging. "Mr. Benson speaks very highly of you, and I'd love to see what you can do. If you're interested, we can set up an interview and a skills test." Maria stared at them, her mind racing. She had dreamed of becoming a chef for years, but she had always dismissed it as impossible. Now, out of nowhere, an opportunity was being handed to her. She felt a surge of hope, tempered by a flicker of doubt. I don't know," she said hesitantly. "I've never had formal training. I just cook for my family." Helen waved her hand dismissively. "Experience isn't everything. Passion and dedication are what matter most. And from what I've heard, you have plenty of both." Maria's chest swelled with emotion. She glanced at Mr. Benson, who gave her an encouraging nod. "You've got nothing to lose, Maria," he said. "Take the chance." After a moment, Maria smiled, her resolve strengthening. She said, "I'll do it." A week later, Maria found herself in the pristine kitchen of the Culinary Institute, surrounded by stainless steel countertops and shelves lined with spices and tools. She felt out of place at first, but as she rolled up her sleeves and got to work, her nerves melted away. Cooking had always been her passion, and for the first time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Her instructors were impressed by her natural talent and her ability to stay calm under pressure. Within months, Maria became one of the top students in the program, earning praise from her peers and mentors alike. It was during one of the Institute's charity events that Maria's path crossed with Nathan's again. He was working as a server, carrying trays of hors d'oeuvres through the crowd with a stiff expression. Maria almost didn't recognize him. His usual smug confidence was gone, replaced by a quiet humility. When their eyes met, Nathan froze, his face turning pale. Maria raised an eyebrow, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Nathan," she said calmly. "Long time no see." Nathan swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maria. I didn't know you'd be here." Maria glanced at the tray in his hands, then back at him. "Looks like life's been teaching you a few lessons," she said, her tone kind but firm. Nathan's cheeks flushed, and he nodded. "It has," he admitted. "More than I'd like to admit." Maria tilted her head, studying him. She could see the cracks in his armor, the vulnerability he had once hidden behind arrogance. For the first time, she felt something other than anger toward him. She felt pity. "Good," she said simply. "It's about time." Nathan stared at Maria, unsure of what to say. For the first time in a long while, he felt completely out of his depth. Gone was the confident, entitled heir who had once mocked her in that diner. Standing before Maria now, Nathan felt small, like a child caught in a lie. He had spent months navigating a world that didn't bend to his every whim, and it had broken down the walls of arrogance he had spent years building. Maria, on the other hand, stood poised and composed, her chef's coat crisp and pristine. She exuded a quiet confidence, one that came from hard work and perseverance. Nathan could see it in her eyes. She had grown far beyond the woman he had mocked, and it stung to realize just how far he had fallen. "I should probably get back to work," Nathan mumbled, breaking the awkward silence. Maria crossed her arms, her expression softening. "Wait," she said, stopping him in his tracks. "Nathan, I can see that life has knocked you down a few pegs. But tell me, what are you doing about it?" Nathan hesitated, his gaze dropping to the tray in his hands. "I'm trying," he admitted. "I've been volunteering here. I needed the job, but I also thought it might help me figure things out." Maria raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "Volunteering, huh? Didn't think I'd hear that from you." Nathan shrugged, his voice tinged with regret. "Let's just say I've had a lot of time to reflect on the kind of person I used to be. I'm not proud of it." Maria studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Good," she said. "Reflection is a start. But it's not enough. Real change takes action." Nathan nodded slowly, her words sinking in. "I know. That's why I'm here." Maria offered a faint smile, her tone softening. "Then keep at it. Everyone deserves a second chance, if they're willing to work for it." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Nathan to process her words. He watched her go, a strange mix of gratitude and determination stirring in his chest. For the first time, he felt like there might be a way to make things right, not just with Maria, but with himself. Over the next few weeks, Nathan threw himself into his volunteer work with renewed focus. He helped set up events, served meals, and even stayed late to clean up afterward. It was hard, thankless work, but it gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Slowly but surely, he began to earn the respect of the people around him. Maria, meanwhile, continued to excel in her culinary program. Her instructors took notice of her dedication and talent, and she was soon given the opportunity to lead her own team at an upcoming charity gala. The event would showcase her skills as a chef and serve as a major stepping stone in her career. When the day of the gala arrived, the venue buzzed with activity. Guests in elegant attire mingled under glittering chandeliers, sipping champagne and sampling the carefully crafted dishes prepared by Maria and her team. Maria moved through the kitchen with ease, directing her staff and ensuring everything ran smoothly. In the dining area, Nathan worked as a server, balancing trays of appetizers and weaving through the crowd. Though he felt out of place among the wealthy guests, he focused on doing his job to the best of his ability. He didn't want to disappoint Maria or himself. As the night progressed, Nathan found himself stationed near the kitchen, where he caught glimpses of Maria at work. He watched as she commanded the room with confidence, her passion for her craft shining through in every detail. It was a far cry from the woman he had mocked in the diner, and Nathan couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. During a brief lull in the evening, Maria stepped out of the kitchen to check on the dining area. She spotted Nathan near the entrance, standing with a tray of empty glasses. Their eyes met, and she gave him a small nod. "Nathan," she said, walking over. "How's it going out here?" Nathan smiled faintly, his grip tightening on the tray. "Busy but manageable. You're doing an incredible job, by the way. Everyone's raving about the food." Maria's lips curved into a modest smile. "Thanks. It's been a long road to get here, but I'm glad to see it paying off." Nathan hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Maria, I want to thank you." Maria raised an eyebrow, curious. "For what?" "For not giving up on me," Nathan said earnestly. "You had every right to walk away and never look back, but you didn't. You gave me a chance to prove I could be better. I don't think I've ever had someone believe in me like that." Maria studied him for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "Nathan, I didn't give you a chance because I believed in you," she said gently. "I gave you a chance because everyone deserves the opportunity to change. What you've done with that opportunity is up to you." Nathan nodded, her words sinking in. "Fair enough," he said. "But I'm still grateful. And I hope I can keep proving that I'm not the same person I used to be." Maria smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "You're on the right track," she said. "Keep going." The gala was a resounding success, with Maria receiving praise from both the guests and her peers. As the night wound down, she found herself reflecting on how far she had come. The struggles, the sacrifices, and the moments of doubt had all led her to this point, and she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride. Nathan, too, felt a sense of accomplishment as he helped clean up after the event. Though his journey was far from over, he knew he had taken an important step forward. He was no longer the man who had walked into that diner with a smirk and a sense of superiority. He was someone who understood the value of hard work, humility, and respect. As the venue emptied and the lights dimmed, Nathan approached Maria one last time. "Maria," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "I know I've said this before, but I want to say it again. I'm sorry for the way I treated you. You didn't deserve any of it." Maria looked at him, her expression soft but firm. "I appreciate your apology, Nathan. And I can see that you're trying to be better. Just remember, it's not about erasing the past. It's about learning from it and using it to build a better future." Nathan nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I'll remember that." They stood in silence for a moment, a sense of mutual understanding passing between them. Though their paths had been vastly different, they had both grown in ways neither of them could have anticipated. As Maria turned to leave, Nathan called out to her. "Maria?" She paused, glancing back over her shoulder. "Yeah. I hope you know how incredible you are," he said simply. Maria smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thanks, Nathan. And I hope you keep proving to yourself that you can be too." With that, she walked away, leaving Nathan to stand alone in the quiet venue. For the first time in his life, he felt a genuine sense of purpose, a drive to be better, not for anyone else, but for himself. The days following the gala marked a shift in both Maria's and Nathan's lives. Maria's success at the event caught the attention of influential figures in the culinary world, and she was soon offered an internship at one of the most prestigious restaurants in the city. The opportunity was a dream come true, yet it also brought new challenges: longer hours, higher expectations, and the need to prove herself among seasoned chefs. Nathan, on the other hand, continued his journey of self-discovery. Volunteering at the Culinary Institute had become more than just a way to pass time. It was a grounding experience that gave him purpose. He found himself taking pride in even the smallest tasks, from setting up tables to helping with food prep. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was part of something meaningful. One afternoon, while Maria was in the middle of her shift at the restaurant, she received a surprise visitor. Nathan stood at the entrance, dressed in a simple button-down shirt and jeans. He looked far more humble than the man she had first met in the diner. "Nathan," Maria said, raising an eyebrow as she approached him. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to talk to you," he said, his tone earnest. "Do you have a minute?" Maria glanced at the bustling kitchen behind her, then nodded. "All right, but make it quick." They stepped outside, the cool air providing a welcome relief from the heat of the kitchen. Nathan hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said at the gala. About learning from the past and building a better future." Maria crossed her arms, waiting for him to continue. "I've decided to go back to school," Nathan said, his voice steady. "I never took it seriously the first time around, but I want to study business. I want to do something that actually matters, something that helps people." Maria's expression softened, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "That's a big decision," she said. "What brought this on?" Nathan shrugged, his gaze thoughtful. "I guess I just realized I've been living my life for the wrong reasons. I was so caught up in trying to impress people and prove something that I forgot what really matters. Volunteering at the institute helped me see that." Maria studied him for a moment, then nodded. "I'm glad to hear that, Nathan. It sounds like you're finally figuring out who you want to be." Nathan smiled faintly. "I've still got a long way to go, but yeah, I think I'm getting there." Maria's own journey was filled with its own trials and triumphs. The internship was grueling, with long shifts and demanding mentors who pushed her to her limits. There were moments when she doubted herself, questioning whether she was good enough to succeed in such a competitive field. But each time she felt overwhelmed, she thought about the sacrifices she had made to get here, and the people who had believed in her. One evening, as she worked late preparing for a VIP dinner service, Maria's phone buzzed with a text from her younger brother, Miguel. "Just wanted to say I'm proud of you, sis. You're amazing." The simple message brought tears to Maria's eyes. She smiled, her resolve strengthening. Miguel had always been her motivation, and knowing that he supported her meant everything. Nathan's journey of self-improvement also came with its share of setbacks. Adjusting to life without the privileges he had once taken for granted wasn't easy. There were days when he felt like giving up, when the weight of his mistakes threatened to crush him. But each time he felt like quitting, he remembered Maria's words, "It's not about erasing the past. It's about learning from it." Those words became his mantra, guiding him through the difficult moments. He enrolled in evening classes at a local college, balancing his studies with his volunteer work at the Culinary Institute. It was a humbling experience, but one that gave him a sense of purpose he had never felt before. Months passed, and the changes in Nathan became more apparent. He carried himself with a quiet confidence, no longer reliant on arrogance to mask his insecurities. He had built genuine connections with the people at the Institute, earning their respect through his hard work and dedication. One day, as Nathan was helping set up for another charity event, Elena, the head of the Institute, approached him. "You've come a long way, Nathan," she said, her tone warm. "I've seen the effort you've put in, and I think it's time we gave you more responsibility." Nathan blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" Elena smiled. "How would you feel about managing the volunteer program? You've got a knack for connecting with people, and I think you'd be great at mentoring others." Nathan hesitated, a mix of excitement and doubt swirling in his chest. "I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm ready for that." "You are," Elena said firmly. "You've proven that you're capable. Trust yourself." Nathan nodded slowly, a small smile forming on his lips. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Meanwhile, Maria's hard work at the restaurant began to pay off. Her mentors took notice of her talent and dedication, and she was soon promoted to a sous chef position. It was a moment of triumph, one that validated all the sacrifices she had made to pursue her dream. One evening, after a particularly successful dinner service, Maria received an unexpected call from Mr. Benson. "Maria, I just wanted to congratulate you on your promotion," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You've earned it." "Thank you, Mr. Benson," Maria replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without your support." "Well, I've got one more surprise for you," he said. "How would you feel about running your own kitchen?" Maria's breath caught in her throat. "You're offering me a head chef position?" "I am," Mr. Benson confirmed. "There's a new restaurant opening downtown, and I can't think of anyone better to lead it." Maria's mind raced, a mix of excitement and disbelief. She had dreamed of this moment for so long, and now it was finally within reach. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Mr. Benson said with a chuckle. "You've earned it." Maria smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "Yes, thank you. I won't let you down." As Maria prepared for her new role, she reflected on how far she had come. From a waitress in a small diner to a head chef in one of the city's most anticipated new restaurants, her journey had been anything but easy. But every struggle, every challenge, had shaped her into the person she was today. Nathan, too, had come a long way. His work at the Culinary Institute and his studies at college had given him a sense of fulfillment he had never known. He had learned the value of humility, perseverance, and the importance of treating others with respect. One evening, as Maria was closing up the restaurant, she received a knock on the door. She opened it to find Nathan standing there, a bouquet of flowers in his hand. "Nathan," she said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I heard about your promotion," Nathan said, smiling. "I just wanted to say congratulations." Maria accepted the flowers, a warm smile spreading across her face. "Thank you. That means a lot." Nathan hesitated, then added, "You've been an inspiration to me, Maria. Watching you chase your dreams and work so hard, it's made me want to be better." Maria's smile softened. "You've come a long way yourself, Nathan. I'm proud of you." They stood in silence for a moment, a sense of mutual respect passing between them. Though their paths had been vastly different, they had both grown in ways they never could have imagined. As Nathan turned to leave, Maria called out to him. "Hey, Nathan?" He turned, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah." "Don't stop," she said simply. "Keep going." Nathan smiled, his heart light. "I will." Nathan left the restaurant that evening feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. For the first time, he felt as though he was on the right path, not just to redemption, but to becoming the person he had always wanted to be. As he walked through the quiet streets of the city, he reflected on everything that had brought him to this point, the mistakes he had made, the people who had believed in him, and the lessons he had learned along the way. At the same time, Maria stood in the kitchen of the restaurant, holding the bouquet of flowers Nathan had given her. She smiled to herself, thinking about how much they had both changed since their first meeting. Life had a funny way of bringing people together, even in the most unexpected circumstances. Maria set the flowers in a vase, her mind already racing with ideas for her new role as head chef. The grand opening of Maria's restaurant was a highly anticipated event. Food critics, local celebrities, and loyal customers filled the elegant dining room, eager to see what Maria had created. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as the kitchen staff worked tirelessly to deliver a flawless experience. Maria moved through the kitchen with confidence, her team responding to her every command. She had spent weeks perfecting the menu, each dish a reflection of her journey and the people who had inspired her along the way. As the first plates went out, the room erupted in applause, the guests marveling at the flavors and presentation. In the crowd, Nathan watched from a quiet corner, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. He had come to support Maria, not as a customer, but as a friend. He smiled as he watched her shine, knowing just how hard she had worked to get to this moment. As the evening progressed, Maria took a moment to step out of the kitchen and thank the guests for their support. She stood at the center of the room, her chef's coat spotless and her voice steady. "I want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight," she began, her eyes scanning the room. "This restaurant is more than just a dream come true for me. It's a testament to the power of hard work, resilience, and the people who believe in you." She paused, her gaze landing on Nathan. "I've learned that no matter where you come from, or how hard the journey may be, it's the people who challenge us, support us, and inspire us who make it all worthwhile." The room erupted into applause, and Maria's heart swelled with gratitude. She glanced at Nathan, who nodded in acknowledgement, his expression filled with respect. Nathan's life, too, had taken a new direction. His studies at the college had sparked a passion for community work, and he had begun collaborating with local organizations to create programs that provided job training and mentorship for underprivileged youth. He used his own experiences as a guide, determined to give others the second chances he had been lucky enough to receive. One day, as Nathan was preparing for a presentation at the Culinary Institute, he received an unexpected visitor. Maria walked into the room, a warm smile on her face and a tray of pastries in her hands. "I heard you were doing something big today," she said, setting the tray on the table. "Figured you could use a little encouragement?" Nathan chuckled, shaking his head. "You didn't have to do that, but thank you. I appreciate it." Maria leaned against the table, her expression thoughtful. "It's amazing to see how far you've come, Nathan. You've really turned your life around." Nathan shrugged, his tone modest. "I had good people pushing me in the right direction. Including you." Maria smiled, a hint of pride in her eyes. "Well, I'm glad I could help. But the rest was all you." The years passed, and both Maria and Nathan continued to thrive in their respective fields. Maria's restaurant became one of the most celebrated establishments in the city, known not just for its incredible food but for its welcoming atmosphere and dedication to community outreach. She often hosted events to support local charities, using her platform to give back to the people who had supported her. Nathan, too, had made a name for himself as a leader in community development. His programs had helped countless individuals find their footing, offering them the tools and resources they needed to succeed. He was no longer the arrogant heir who looked down on others. He was someone who lifted people up, earning their respect and gratitude. One day, Maria received an invitation to a fundraising gala hosted by the Culinary Institute. The event was meant to celebrate the achievements of alumni and supporters, and Maria was thrilled to attend. She hadn't been back to the institute in years, and she was eager to see how it had grown. When she arrived, she was greeted by familiar faces and warm embraces. The room was filled with laughter and reminiscing, the atmosphere electric with joy. As Maria made her way through the crowd, she spotted Nathan standing by the stage, deep in conversation with Elena. "Nathan," Maria called, her voice cutting through the noise. Nathan turned, his face lighting up as he saw her. "Maria, I was hoping you'd be here." Maria approached him, her smile wide. "You look good," she said, taking in his polished yet approachable appearance. "You've come a long way." Nathan chuckled, his tone light. "I could say the same about you. Head chef, community leader, is there anything you can't do?" Maria laughed, shaking her head. "I could ask you the same thing. How's the mentorship program going?" Nathan's expression turned serious, a note of pride in his voice. "Better than I ever could have imagined. We're expanding into new cities, and the response has been incredible." "That's amazing," Maria said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "You should be proud." Nathan smiled, a warmth in his eyes. "I am. But I couldn't have done it without people like you." Maria tilted her head, her gaze softening. "Nathan, you don't give yourself enough credit. You've done the work. You've earned this." Nathan hesitated, then nodded. "Thanks, Maria. That means a lot." As the evening drew to a close, the two of them stood outside the venue, the city lights casting a warm glow around them. They talked about their journeys, their challenges, and their dreams for the future. For the first time, there was no tension or awkwardness between them, just mutual respect and understanding. "You know," Maria said, glancing at Nathan, "if someone had told me back in the diner that we'd end up here, I wouldn't have believed them." Nathan laughed, shaking his head. "Me neither. But I'm glad we did." Maria smiled, her eyes shining. "Me too." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. Though their paths had been vastly different, they had both learned the same important lesson, that change was possible and that it was never too late to become the person you wanted to be. As they parted ways that night, both Maria and Nathan felt a sense of closure and a sense of hope for the future. They had come a long way, but their journeys were far from over. Together, they had proven that even the most unexpected connections could lead to something extraordinary. Maria's restaurant thrived in the months following the gala. The glowing reviews poured in from food critics, social media influencers, and loyal customers alike. The dining room was often packed, and reservations had to be booked weeks in advance. Maria became a rising star in the culinary world, featured in magazines and invited to television interviews to share her story. But despite her success, Maria remained humble. She continued to give back to the community that had supported her along the way. Every Sunday, her restaurant hosted a free lunch service for those in need, funded by a portion of the restaurant's profits. Maria would personally cook and serve meals alongside her staff, greeting each guest with warmth and kindness. One afternoon, during one of these community lunches, Maria spotted a familiar face in the crowd. It was Mrs. Harper, the elderly woman who had been one of her regulars back when she worked at the diner. Maria's heart swelled with emotion as she hurried over to greet her. "Mrs. Harper!" Maria exclaimed, kneeling beside her. "I can't believe it's you." Mrs. Harper's eyes lit up with recognition, her smile spreading across her face. "Maria, my dear. Look at you. You've done so well for yourself." Maria reached for her hand, holding it tightly. "You have no idea how much your kindness meant to me back then. It kept me going on the hardest days." Mrs. Harper chuckled softly. "And look where it's brought you. You've built something beautiful, Maria. You should be proud." Maria felt a lump in her throat as she hugged the older woman. Moments like this reminded her of why she had worked so hard, not just for herself, but for the people who had believed in her when it mattered most. Meanwhile, Nathan's mentorship program continued to grow. His team had expanded to include professionals from various fields, chefs, business owners, and educators, who were eager to help young people build their futures. Nathan had poured his heart into the program, working tirelessly to ensure its success. One day, As Nathan prepared to meet with his team, he received a call from Elena. "Nathan, I have some exciting news," Elena said, her voice brimming with enthusiasm. "The city council wants to partner with your program. They're offering funding and resources to expand it even further." Nathan's jaw dropped. "Are you serious?" "Absolutely," Elena replied. "They're impressed with everything you've accomplished, and they want to help you reach more people." Nathan felt a surge of pride and gratitude. "This is incredible. Thank you, Elena. None of this would have been possible without your support." Elena chuckled. "Don't sell yourself short, Nathan. You've worked hard for this. Enjoy, you've earned it." As Nathan hung up the phone, he couldn't help but think back to where he had started. The spoiled, entitled man who had walked into that diner felt like a distant memory. He had come so far, and yet he knew there was still so much more he wanted to achieve. Months later, Maria and Nathan's paths crossed again. This time, it was at a citywide charity event that brought together leaders from various industries. Maria had been invited as a guest speaker, while Nathan was there to represent his mentorship program. When Maria stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent. She spoke about the importance of perseverance, community, and the power of second chances. Her words resonated with the audience, many of whom were moved to tears by her story. Nathan watched from the crowd, a sense of awe washing over him. Maria had always been strong, but now she seemed almost untouchable, a beacon of hope and inspiration for everyone around her. When she finished her speech, the audience erupted into applause, and Nathan felt a swell of pride for his friend. After the event, Nathan approached Maria, his smile warm. "You were amazing up there," he said. "I don't think there was a dry eye in the room." Maria laughed, shaking her head. "Thanks, Nathan. It's still a little nerve-wracking, but I'm getting used to it." Nathan hesitated for a moment, then added, "I wanted to ask, would you be interested in partnering with my mentorship program? We're always looking for role models, and I can't think of anyone better than you." Maria's eyes widened, surprised but intrigued. "Me? I don't know if I'm cut out for that." "You are," Nathan said firmly. "Your story is exactly what people need to hear. You've overcome so much, and you've done it with grace and strength. You're the kind of inspiration these kids need." Maria smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "All right," she said. "I'll do it." Over the next year, Maria and Nathan worked together to create a series of workshops and events that combined their passions for food, community, and mentorship. They organized cooking classes for underprivileged youth, teaching them valuable skills while also fostering a sense of confidence and creativity. One of their most successful events was a Dinner with a Purpose fundraiser, where participants worked alongside professional chefs to prepare and serve a gourmet meal. The event raised thousands of dollars for their programs, and it became an annual tradition. Through their collaboration, Maria and Nathan grew closer. Their mutual respect and admiration deepened into a genuine friendship, built on trust and shared values. They supported each other through challenges and celebrated each other's victories, always pushing one another to be better. One evening, after a particularly successful event, Maria and Nathan found themselves sitting in the quiet kitchen of her restaurant, sharing a bottle of wine. The room was dimly lit, the hum of the city outside providing a soothing backdrop. "You know," Nathan said, swirling his glass, "I used to think that success was about money and status. But now, it feels like it's about the people you help along the way." Maria nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "I used to think success was just about survival. But now I see it's about making a difference." Nathan smiled, raising his glass. "To making a difference?" Maria clinked her glass against his. "To second chances?" They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of their journeys hanging in the air. Though their paths had been different, they had both found their way to a place of purpose and fulfillment. Years later, Maria's restaurant had grown into a beloved institution, with multiple locations across the city. Her mentorship work with Nathan continued to thrive, and together, they had helped countless individuals build brighter futures. Nathan, too, had expanded his reach, partnering with organizations across the country to bring his programs to new communities. He had become a respected leader in his field, known not just for his work but for his humility and compassion. One day, as they stood side by side at yet another charity event, Maria turned to Nathan with a smile. "You know, if someone had told me all those years ago that we'd end up here, I wouldn't have believed them." Nathan laughed, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Me neither. But I'm glad we did." Maria nodded, her expression warm. "Me too." As they looked out at the crowd, filled with the people whose lives they had touched, they knew that their work was far from over. But they also knew that they were exactly where they were meant to be. Together, they had proven that even the most unexpected connections could lead to extraordinary things.